Hi, my name is Stuart Lynch, and this is a complete update with all new content to a previous series I created on managing your source code or your version control using Xcode. Now, we're not able to do everything via Xcode, but almost. So I want to introduce you to many useful Git terminal commands so that you'll be able to get a better understanding of how Xcode source control works under the hood. This is a multi-part series, so buckle up and let's get started learning all about Git and Xcode's source control. I love getting your feedback, so tap the thumbs up button if you enjoyed this video and leave a comment below. Make sure you subscribe to the video and ring that bell to get notifications of new videos. And if you want to support my work, you can buy me a coffee. In this series of videos, I want to introduce you to source control using Xcode. This series is mainly intended for independent developers or those of you learning how to code with Xcode, and not particularly teams of users. My experience has been working on my own and not in a team, so I'm not really qualified to be able to talk about managing projects with multiple contributors. But I can talk about working on a project on multiple different Macs and making sure that the code is kept in sync at all times. This is how I work. I have my main computer in my home office, but also I have a MacBook Air at my easy chair where I often work on projects late at night. I always want to be sure that I update my code so that when I access it from another computer, it'll be the current version. And I think the best way to tackle source code is by way of an example, and that's what I plan to do in this series of videos. We're going to build a very simple ratings view that you might want to use in your own projects. It's a simple view that you can create passing in a max rating, the current rating, a color, and a symbol. And along with that, a width argument that will determine the size and create a view that when tapped on will update or clear the current rating. Before I do that, however, I want to make sure that you have all of the tools you need. Yes, this course is about using Xcode for source control, but there are some other command line comments that you will have to know, and they're very useful. So let's get started. First of all, what do I mean by source control? Well, source control, also known as version control or revision control, is a system that helps developers manage and track changes to their software code or other files. It does allow multiple people to work on the same project without overwriting each other's work, and provides a history of all changes made over time. I said that our focus is on an independent developer, but everything that I show you will be applicable to working with other users as well. Think of it like a digital time machine for your files. Source control helps you to track changes. It keeps a record of every edit or update made on your files so that you can see who made a change and when. It allows you to collaborate. Multiple team members can work on the same project simultaneously without conflicts, as source control merges their changes intelligently. Though we'll not be working collaboratively with anyone else, we can use Git to branch off on a tangent to develop and test new features, and then when satisfied, bring those changes back into your main project. Backup and recovery. It acts as a backup, letting you restore previous versions of your work if something goes wrong. And I'm sure that many of you will have made duplicate copies of your projects as backups, so that if you mess up, you have something to go back to. Well, I hope that after this series, you'll no longer do this. And compare versions. You can compare different versions of your files to see what has changed, making it easier to find and fix issues. While Git's not the only source control system, there are others like Subversion or Mercurial, but Git is the most popular version control system in the software development world. It has gained widespread adoption and was the standard choice for version control in a wide range of projects and organizations. GitHub, a web-based platform for hosting Git repositories, and we'll be looking at that too. While Git is baked into Xcode. What I want to do first in this video, though, is introduce you to Git command line and show you some of the basics of source control with Git. I won't be covering all of the commands that Git has to offer, and I'll introduce you to more throughout the series. I'm going to first show you how to add version control to an Xcode project and make a commit to some source code using the command line. And then I'm going to show you source control in Xcode and how you can repeat the process entirely within it. we might as well get started first by creating a new Xcode project. So create a new project using the iOS app template. Call it Custom Ratings. Then click on Next and make sure Create Git Repository in my Mac is not checked. And save it to a location of your choice. I'm just going to put mine on the desktop. Now, Xcode has a new Integrate menu that used to be called Source Control. And if you select this menu, you should see that currently almost all of the commands are disabled because we have not implemented Source Control here yet. I'll get to that later, but just for now, let's just exit Xcode. And then open the folder containing your Xcode project. I'd like to show the path bar at the bottom of this window. So if you don't see this, you can choose View, Show Path Bar, or you can simply use Command Option P. Now right-click on the folder, and one of the options is to open in Terminal. You should see that it is opened and changed the directory path to your current project folder. Now, terminal commands can be quite cryptic, and there are often a lot of flags or arguments associated with commands we might execute here. And I'm definitely not an expert, but I know that if I want to list the files in the current directory, I can use the ls command and then press return. I also know that I can change directories using the cd command and follow that by the name of the folder or directory that I want to change to. And here I can do another ls. I just have to know those flags and arguments, and when we get to Git, we're going to find that there are a lot of arguments and flags to be had. Now, those of you who know me know that I script my videos, and I record the video first with no audio, and then I record the audio afterwards and match it up to my video. I'm telling you this because I wanted to introduce you to a great command line addition that I use called Fig that adds code completion to terminal. Unfortunately, it's been acquired, and although you can still download and install the software, they are currently not accepting any new accounts. I didn't know this until after I recorded the video, but I've kept the installation in this video because I'm hoping that it will soon change, and you will notice throughout this series that I do have code completion for my Git terminal commands, so you won't see those in your own. So let's exit terminal, and I'll install Fig and show you what you can hope for. Let's visit the Fig website, and I'll leave a link in the description. You can either download it from the link in the download page, or you can use Homebrew. I'm just going to use the link to download and extract the DMG file. The installation is very simple. I just open the DMG file and drag the Fig application into my application folder. Let me open the DMG now and then double click to open it. And I'm going to trust the app, and so I'll allow it to install. And then once open, we'll see the message that Fig has not been installed correctly. So all I have to do is click on the button to fix issues. And this is really just completing the installation. Now you will need an account, and currently they're not accepting any new accounts, but I'd really encourage you to keep checking back on this, as you'll see. I'm not going to go through any more of the settings for Fig, as out of the box it works perfectly for me. I'll invite you to explore more once you have your own account. But before I move on, let me just quickly show you the difference, and so you'll see what you're going to see when I use my terminal command. So I'm going to repeat the process that I just did before by opening terminal at the custom ratings folder. If I type ls followed by a space now, I start to see some code completion. And notice that each option comes with a description. If I use a dash, I can see the flag possibilities. So if I go -L and press return, we'll get a listing in vertical form. And if I try again, and this time choose ls-la, we get the directory permissions displayed as well. If I type cd followed by a space, I'll now get a listing of all of the files and folders with icons, and even a preview now, so I can select that same folder. Well, when you are there, you can keep drilling down, say to Assets, and then I can list the contents there. Now make note of the path we're on here, and I can do that by typing pwd, and this will give you the present working directory, or the entire path. And now I see if I want to go back to the custom ratings folder's parent, that's 2 levels up. So I can type and go to .. And then when I do pwd again, I see that I'm still 1 level deep. So I'll type cd ... and enter one more time. And then when I do pwd, it shows me that I'm at that root level. I don't want to spend any more time here on those fig and the terminal commands. We're here for Git. So let's get started. So you can type Command K in the terminal screen will clear. Git has its own set of command line comments and arguments and flags. And we always want to make sure that we implement source control at the contents of the root of our project. And that happens to be where we are right now. So if I type Git followed by a space, here I'm going to be able to see all the Git commands and a brief explanation. But for you, you can just type in or select Git init, and then press enter, and that's the command to create an empty repository. In Fig, I could type Control K, and I'll see the entire content of the help. Anyway, we press enter to execute the command, and then return to your Finder window, and you see nothing. But if I type Command-Shift-period to hide and show invisible files, you'll see a hidden .git folder. And all the files beginning with a period on a Mac are hidden by default from the Mac Finder, but the Command-Shift-period will hide or reveal those hidden files. And you can drill down here to see what's there, but we're never actually going to be doing that. Well, let's open Xcode now, and you'll see that the menus are all active in our Integrate menu. And there's a little question mark beside the app name in the navigation bar. And this indicates that the project is now under source control, but no files have been added. Now there's no need to close Xcode, but I can return to terminal now, and I'm going to add one more command, and that's git add followed by a period. And what that does is it stages all files within that folder to be under source control. And then back in Xcode now, we see that the question mark has changed to an M, as has the assets folder, but others have an A. Now we'll be covering what these letters mean in another tutorial. But what we've done in Git terminology is stage all of our files so that we can commit them to our repository. And in Git, each commit must have a comment. So back in terminal, we can commit the files using the git command commit with a -m flag followed by a comment. So if your comment has more than one word, you need to surround it with single quotes. So this is my initial commit. And then press enter. And then in Xcode, you'll see that all of the letters have now disappeared. Well, back in terminal, I can see what was committed by using the git log command. And we get to see the author, the date, and the time, and the comment that was used. And if we want to see which files were committed, we can do a git ls-files to see the list of files under source control. While returning to Xcode, we can see this if we go to the source control navigator, and then the repositories tab, and click on the first line. On the right-hand side, you see that the commit is listed there with the author name. And if I double-click on it, you'll see the date and time instead of just today. We'll get back to more of this soon. Now let me show you the same thing using Xcode. First, I want to remove all source control from this project. So I can exit Xcode. And the easy way to do all this is when you go to Finder, you can simply delete the .git folder. If I open Xcode once again, we can see that we're still in the source control navigator and the repository tab, but no commits are being displayed. And you'll also notice that the integrate menu items are grayed out again, indicating that we're not under source control. Well, what I can do is select New Git Repository from that menu, and then at the next screen, click on Create. And when I return to the source control navigator and then the repositories menu, you see that our files have already been staged and committed all in one step. The single act of creating a new Git repository has done this for us all at once. And then if we return to terminal, I'm going to clear the screen. The last command we performed was that git ls-files. So if I press the up arrow on the keyboard, it will enter it again for me. And then if I press enter again, we can see the list of files that are under source control. There's an easier way still, but before I show you, there are some files here that I do not want under source control. So I'm going to do a very brief introduction to a concept called git ignore. And the one in here that I'm looking at ignoring is this one here, is the XC user data. This does not need to be under source control. Now I'll get to git ignore in a video on its own, but for now, just open your Xcode settings and then go to the source control tab. Go to the Git tab, and for a lot of you, this ignored file section will be completely empty. This is displaying content from a global git ignore file that you have in your home directory. And again, I'll get to this later. But what I want to do is to just make sure that I have two entries in here. The first one is going to tell Git that we want to ignore all Xcode user data. So tap on the plus button and enter XC user data followed by a /, all lowercase. And then the second thing that we want to ignore is that Makefile ds store. And it's a file created by the Mac OS operating system. The name ds stands for Desktop Services, and these files are hidden and contain metadata about the directory in which they are located, including the position of icons, view settings, and other information related to that directory's appearance and behavior within the Finder. In later versions of Mac OS, we don't even see these hidden files anymore when we do that Command-Shift period. But these do get transferred to a remote repository that we will be getting to. So we need to make sure that these files are ignored as well. So create a new entry and add period _DS _STORE. Well, the problem right now, though, is that these files have already been committed. So you'll have to wait until we get to that section to find out how we can remove items from source control. But since we've not really done any coding yet with this project, let's simply delete the entire project, and I'm going to show you how you can really speed up the initial commit up. So I'm going to quit Xcode and delete that project folder. And I'm going to exit terminal as well because it's no longer going to be able to point to some folder that's in the trash. Then I'll open Xcode again, and I'm going to create a new project with that same name, Custom Ratings. I'll click on Next, but this time I'm going to make sure that I check Create a Git repository on my Mac. And once it's checked, from now on, Xcode will remember that setting. And once Xcode is opened, you'll see that from the Integrate menu that we are already under source control. And if I go to the Source Control Navigator and the Repositories tab, I see that we have our initial commit too. So let me quit Xcode and open a new terminal window at our project root. And then I'm going to execute that ls-files command now and press return. And I'll get the contents that have been committed to source code, but I'll note that the XC user data item is no longer there. It's been successfully ignored. Well, that's the end of this first video. There's so much more to cover, and in the next video, you will really start to see the benefits of source control and how easy it is to use Xcode to stage and commit changes or roll back to the last commit if we need to start over. I hope that you stick with me on this journey. If you're enjoying this series, please give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment. And be sure to subscribe to my channel and enable notifications so that you'll be made aware when new videos drop.